promised that we had an exciting guest today, and did I lie? I did not. Please welcome the one and only Brennan Lee Mulligan to the stream. Hi, how you doing?
Ah, I'm doing great. How you doing, Amy? It's great to see you.
It's very good to see you. And I know we, of course, hung eagerly on every second of Battle for Beyond last fall, but we didn't get the pleasure of, bugging you in chat during it. So we're finding fun new ways to get you involved over here. Thank you.
Incredible. Could not be more excited. An opportunity to get people hyped for this Sunday for an amazing stream and a great cause and raising money, and also to deeply nerd out over the mechanics of a 20th level character build. So that's very exciting.
So, with that amazing segue, this Sunday, March 20th, if you're watching this right now on Twitch, if you're catching this on YouTube in time, or if it's in the past, go back and figure out how to support it because you missed something great. I feel pretty confident saying that. Sunday, March 20th from 2 to 5 Pacific, D&D Beyond is going to be hosting Streaming for Survivors, a level 21 shot that is going to benefit the Wava Rape Crisis Center in Canada, an incredible cause. Very dear to my heart. I was lucky enough to roll with them last year and had a wonderful time. And I'm hoping everyone, you can start donating now. Hint, hint. Nothing is stopping you. You could just do that right now. There are some amazing things that are going to be available if you do support that cause. There are going to be some fun ways to affect that game. And you are just going to have, I think, a really good time with a bunch of very interesting characters, including the one we're going to take a look at today. So you're going to want, oh, I did forget to, they're on screen, but because they're all rad, it is going to be led by B. Dave Walters. You know him, you love him, you know you got to be there for level 20 D&D with B. Dave. And Nora Ibrahim, Charlene Bayer from Wava, the one and only Brennan Lee Mulligan, Satine Phoenix, and Robbie Damon. What a table!
What a squad! What a squad! Unbelievable. Yeah, I could not be more excited. This is my, I think, like fourth or fifth one shot for charity run by B. Dave. B. Dave Walters, the king of level 20 one shots, the undisputed. He's incredible at it, and not a lot of opportunities out here to play level 20 characters. I don't know if most folks know that. Most campaigns with the best of intentions do not get all the way to 20th level.
So the real tier 4 is that you have managed to keep a campaign going that long without somebody moving or all of the various natural hazards that are the true enemy of D&D games.
Right. The highest challenge rating is not in the monster manual. It is getting a job or having children. And we all know that those, or moving, you move to another city. What are we going to do? I have a 13-year-long home game that started with us all like cohabitating, and now we live in 3 different cities. So, that's you gotta strap in. You gotta put the work in, as they say.
May I ask what level the 13-year campaign is at right now?
So it's still 3.5. They are split between 19th and 18th level. So if we keep it going another year or two, we could all get to 20th level the hard way from level 1 PCs over a decade and a half. So yikes, that's a lot of adventuring. They're facing up this. Yeah. Oh, go for it. Yes.
Yeah. No.
They're facing off against one of their big bads this Saturday. So before our awesome charity stream on Sunday, the day before that, I will be playing zero cameras D&D. Well, cameras because of Zoom, but not streamed D&D, and they will be facing off against a great and terrible villain, the Master Logician, who is a gnomish tyrant with a light bulb for a head. So that's going to be intense.
You're just going to be a D&D adrenaline machine all weekend. I'm very excited.
All weekend. Let's do it.
And that will be a great fit for the character that you have rolled up. I have had the pleasure of an advanced sneak peek at this character. So let's take a look at Pentival 5 Longfoot. Brennan, who is Pentival?
Pentival 5 Longfoot. So, he goes by 5. It's a little bit easier than Pentival. Pentival is a knight. He is a sorcerer. He is an assassin. He's sort of an Alanis Morissette song come to life. There's a lot of things. There's a lot going on there. So five, as he goes by, is a rabbit man, a Harengon, but rabbit's fine, and he's a deeply proficient adventurer hero, and he loves to fight the good fight, but not necessarily in classic terms. He's actually it's kind of an assassin. It's sort of the emphasis on assassin, even though that's not by level what he sort of does the most. But um, Pentival is it's a sort of like motley assemblage of classes. So the recurring theme of him is the number 5. He has 5 different character classes. He is a sorcerer, ranger, rogue, fighter, paladin.
Sorcerer, fighter, ranger, rogadin.
Sorcerer, fighter, ranger, rogadin. Exactly. Thank you. He's not high enough level to have a subclass in fighter, but he's subclass assassin and rogue, subclass gloomstalker and ranger, subclass devotion and paladin, and subclass wild magic and sorcerer. He is busted to bits. He's a busted to bits character. I had another charity stream that I did with B. Dave Walters DMing. I've done a couple instances of for World Builders, which is Pat Rothfuss's charity, and World Build that one I play a character called Mossbrow that put up 280 points of damage in a single round. And overplaying him over multiple sessions, I was kicking myself because there are some flaws in his build. I really could have done better than 280 points. And thus was born Pentival. What you have to understand is this. I love storytelling. What you have to understand is this. I love storytelling and role playing. I love storytelling and role playing. B. Dave comes at you, and B. Dave doesn't, yes, the world of Kairos is a very rich setting that B. Dave has created, but we're not doing a bunch of like character creation sessions. We're not, this is a share. It's a one shot. It's a one shot. So B. Dave so the brief you get is not like a 4-page like welcome to the lore of your village where your first level PC starts. It's your 20th level. You have an artifact, a rare magic item, and an uncommon magic item. So, Amy, I'm so defensive right now. Amy, I put the question to you. Given that the brief is so broad and that we are just meant to create a level 20 character of any variation, you have to find creative parameters because otherwise it's too vast. Like just make a character, a level 20 character based on what? What are my prompts? So you have to set your own prompts. And for me, if I don't have that, if it's a one shot and there's not a big thrust of the campaign, my prompts tend to be mechanical. And so I said, can I break the record for single round damage, for amount of damage in a single round? With that as my little thing, my little like, oh, maybe I'll try to do that. This character is bad. You should not play this character. To all the kids at home, I know it seems harsh.
It's not
what
right for every table, is what I would say.
Not right for every table. But what I also mean to say is, even mechanically, this character is not good in a campaign. This character will not last more than 4 hours. This is a character there are a bunch of suboptimal choices in this character because the character was not designed. Things that are optimal over a campaign are not necessarily optimal in a single session. So I find that interesting. So there were a lot. I actually had a different build of this character that only had 4 classes and was, in my opinion, a much more powerful character. But the character was not optimized for what I wanted the character to be able to do. So we actually made the character significantly worse in order to make the character better, if that makes sense.
Or better.
Or better. He's a rabbit. He's got a magic sword. Where should we start? Where do you what do you want to look? What should we talk about first? Should we talk about more story stuff about him, or should we talk about some of like the first choices that got made that like were the genesis of the character?
Yeah, let's look at a couple of the core things that you were like, if I'm doing this, I'm gonna need this, this, and this. To start with,
Cool.
maybe Harengon are relatively new. A lot of folks won't have rolled one up yet. Why was this a good choice for this guy?
Okay, so the reason Harengon became the choice here, essentially, if we go to look at their features, they're a relatively new race. This is like Wild Beyond the Witchlight, right? Is where we first get these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we look at their abilities. They're first of all, you get to determine where their abilities go, right? They
Mm-hmm.
get a +2 to one and a +1 to another. That is wild. That is really good. That's better. That's almost better than variant humans, right? Getting a +2 to one and a +1 to another. So right away, you have this incredible flexibility in terms of their build with the stats that they want to go to. Proficiency, leporine senses, proficiency in perception skills, very fun. Lucky footwork is a great ability. When you fail a dex saving throw, you can use your reaction to roll a d4, add it to the save, potentially turning the failure into a success. You can't use this reaction if you're prone or your speed is 0. A lovely little ribbon ability, right? That's very rarely going to like be what your character's build is about. But what a lovely little piece of flavor. I'll add a d4 to my dexterity save. That sounds delightful. I'll take that. That's useful in all kinds of situations.
Small
Now I'm
question:
going to
what's a
talk.
ribbon ability?
A ribbon ability is an ability. Normally, it's referred to in character classes, but a ribbon ability is something that doesn't play towards the core of the class's design.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, a ribbon ability is that paladins are immune to disease, right? No one's ever looked at number one. If an ability doesn't tie into divine smite, that's there's a couple abilities and these are arguable, but I think that you can say the core ability of a paladin is divine smite in the way that meta magic is the core feature of sorcerers, right? Now you can get a little bit sort of, you could say like, well, wait a minute, isn't spell casting the core ability of a sorcerer? That's correct, like obviously that's the thing, but the thing that makes sorcerers is meta magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a ribbon ability refers to something that not only is not central to kind of the balance considerations of the class, but is also sort of like it sounds. It's like a ribbon on a present. It's like this is not the gift, but it is delightful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so immunity to disease is like that. So that lucky footwork or the rabbits, the Harengon's ability to avoid certain dex effect is great, but it's not necessarily what I would say is going to like make or break the character. Let's talk about let's talk about the ability that really made this the deal breaker here. Hair trigger, amazing pun. First of all, you add your proficiency bonuses to your initiative rolls. Now, there are many broken things about this character. Perhaps the most broken is the +17 to initiative.
This was, if there was one thing that jumped out at you from this sheet, it should perhaps be the section under initiative, which is higher than your armor class.
That's a great point. And Amy, you raise a great point that the initiative is higher than the armor class. The initiative is higher than any of my other skills. It's the highest skill I have is my initiative, higher than any of my saving throws. Let's double check this. Oh, significantly higher than my attack bonus, right? Significantly.
And if you weren't wielding a few of your doodads, it would probably be beating most of your stats at this point.
Oh yes, 100%. Oh yes, it is definitely higher than any of my natural ability scores, far and away, far and away. Um, I think the only two bigger numbers are my speed and hit points on the character sheet, right? Um, so you know, that's a lot. So that +17 initiative, right, is a combination. Now, how do we get there? Because my dexterity is only +3. Um, so only 3 of that 17 is coming from dexterity, which for most characters, their initiative is solely dexterity. So you take away the dexterity, that gets you to 14. Harengon adds the proficiency bonus, which is 20 levels plus 6. So we go from 14 to 8.
Hmm.
Um, now we're at 8. Alert feat is adding plus 5 to that. So that's one of the feat selections. That leaves you with 3. 3 is coming from the Gloomstalker Ranger feature, which is Dread Ambusher, right? Which is adding the wisdom bonus to that as well. So this is a highly vigilant. So, in other words, what's sort of fun for me, right? And I know that there's a lot of people who don't necessarily start with the mechanics first. Totally fine. What I have often found about starting with the story, if you start to get an idea for your character, is that you sometimes get backed into weird positions in terms of like, how do I put this? You go like, okay, I have a perfect vision for this fantasy character. And then you're taking class selections and you're going like, well, I want druid spells, but I don't necessarily think wild shape is right for my character to have. And you end up with these weird things of having to accommodate the mechanics. So, especially for one shots, one of the things I like to do is set a mechanical objective, like most damage in a single round, and then write the character around all the goofy stuff I chose. Where I go like, I guess this assassin paladin is a rabbit, and you're like, make that make sense. And it actually makes for fun stuff. So one of the things we know about this rabbit is no character has ever been cagier than this rabbit. This rabbit is ready for combat to pop off at all times. Plus 17 to initiative. He's going first, right? So which seems very fitting with this, like, and it's also very fun to think about a palette, but again, he's mostly, I think his highest class levels are sorcerer and then ranger. So this guy's all over the place. What is he like? We don't know. So that was the main feature of Harengon, where I went, that's got to go in. Now we can talk about why we optimized for initiative, but yes, initiative was the consideration for choosing Harengon.
Excellent. So yes, if the goal was most damage in a single round, and you found these ways to make sure that you were super initiative heavy, and for folks like listening carefully, I love having these conversations partly because I do a mixed approach to character creation myself, where I'll have an idea or I'll have a class I want to try, and then I'll sort of go in fits and starts each way. And anytime I get stuck, I kind of try the other angle to see if that unlocks something. So you can, just to underline it, you can hear Brennan talking through this sort of like, all right, well, I must be kind of on my feet at all times. So what else would that mean? How else would that affect how I play? And it's sort of, you're starting to reverse engineer. You said, what would this guy be like? What would he, working backwards from that vision, as if you are trying to reconstruct the ancient records of this champion and figure out how he must have been doing what he, like, how did they build the pyramids? How did this champion work?
Yes.
So I love that. What's the next element? Why do we need that initiative? How's that going to make us so dangerous?
So here's what it comes down to. Okay. This character is a combination of the two features that create this character, right? Are Divine Smite and Assassinate, right? That is the damage multiplier, right? So this is a character who primarily is sort of a murderer for justice. They are a good aligned paladin who's mostly not looking for a fair fight. They so to clue people in, the key features of this class are represented in their first 5 character levels, which is Divine Smite at second level of Paladin. And then at the third level of Rogue, you choose the subclass Assassin. So I'll just read these features real quick. Divine Smite. When you hit with a melee weapon attack, you can expend 1 spell slot to deal 2d8 extra radiant damage to the target, plus 1d8 for each spell level higher than first, right? To a max of 5d8, you get an additional plus d8 against undead or fiends, right? If you then go to your rogue features, at third level, you get Assassinate. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in the combat yet. And any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. So This character is built around trying to get the surprise round, right? Trying to get the surprise round, to try to pop off before anybody knows he's there. The spell selection for this character across both the Ranger class and Sorcerer class, from Gloomstalker, he's got Pass Without Trace, which means with the expertise, he's rolling, I think, a plus 25 to stealth, right? With Pass Without Trace active. So trying to get to this place. The main spells that that Pentival is going to try to have active before combat jumps off are Pass Without Trace to get into position. You know, he's found some fiend or undead that is a threat to all the fine rabbit folk of Kairos. And he rolls up with Pass Without Trace. And also, critically, two spells that are not concentration, which are Mirror Image and Blink. You will notice Pentival, for a melee combatant, does not have the best hit points at 145. Like, okay, but for 20th level, not a tank, right? And his armor class at at 16 is pretty low. So Mirror Image and Blink is how this dude stays out of trouble. So the idea of him appearing in multiples and mostly not being in this material plane on his enemy's turn is a big part of the survival strategy, right? Very rabbit-like too. The idea of like, well, if you're in a fight, the best way to take a hit is not to take it at all, right? And whoop, he's just gone into a magical rabbit hole. He's a real Bugs Bunny murderer who should be able to put up 400 plus damage in round one. So Assassinate is, if you get that surprise round off, it is advantage on everything and auto crits when you hit. Divine Smite, so powering those, and again, he has 7 levels of sorcerers to get all these high level spell slots to power those Divine Smites. So now we get into where these other goofy kind of classes come up, right? Because there's Gloomstalker for Ranger, and then there's the 2 levels of Fighter. Additionally, remembering that once he's in position, he drops the Pass Without Trace to throw haste on, which is going to give him an extra weapon attack. So in that first surprise round, on average, he's going to have an initiative of 27 or 28, right? In that surprise round, he should be able to get the drop on the person, meaning that the person is both surprised and has not acted yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he should be able to hit them 6 times in that first round, which is attack, extra attack with the 5th level of Ranger, action surge from Fighter for 2 more attacks. Gloomstalker throws an extra attack in the first round of combat, which also has an extra D8 damage. And then haste is giving you that extra sword attack. So there's either he will have bonus action cast haste, or he will bonus action convert sorcery points to be able to drop a max level smite on all 6 attacks, assuming he hits. I know I'm going on a lot. This is exhausting even to me. But this is the price you have to pay. What this should look like, because he also has the Sword of Zariel as his artifact.
Let's talk about those items.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's do it.
A brief diversion, because you've got, and this is per beta specific instructions, you picked up some items, which are giving you some very fun features. What's the Sword of Zariel?
Sword of Zariel is an artifact that is the best item in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It is unbelievable. You can, when you attune to it, you can speak, read, and write Celestial. You have resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. Your charisma score becomes 20 unless it is already 20 or higher. You sprout a beautiful pair of feathered wings that grant you a flying speed of 90 feet and the ability to hover. For flavor, I'm going to ask B-Dave. I don't actually want Pentival to have wings. I would prefer him to just jump incredible distances and also be able to video game double jump off of the air if he needs to change direction mid-flight. You know what I mean? Yeah. If he needs to hover, I want him to just pop up off of a double jump and just sort of float in the air for a second. True Sight. Oh, an incredible! True Sight is so good. You cut through so much trickery. It's so good. Your eyes become luminous pools of silver. You can see in normal and magical darkness, see invisible creatures and objects, automatically detect visual illusions, succeed on saving throws against them, perceive the original form of a shape changer or creature that is transformed by magic, and see into the ethereal plane, all within a range of 60 feet. By the way, being able to see into the ethereal plane when you cast Blink a lot, very useful, right? So that you're not blinking into a bad situation that you otherwise wouldn't know about. Bunch of personality stuff happens. It's very cool. Holy Light. Fiends, you can shed bright light. The fiends will find disconcerting. They have disadvantage on attack rolls made within the weapon's radius of bright light. Incredible. Then minor beneficial properties. I don't even know about that. I'm more powerful than I thought. Thank you for going over this with me, Amy. I'm going to be a little bit more effective on Sunday than I thought I would otherwise be. Incredible. Okay, Searing Radiance. The sword deals an extra 9. The sword deals an extra 2d8 radiant damage to any creature it hits, or 3d10 if you're wielding the weapon with 2 hands. Pentival, who's optimized to deal damage, is certainly wielding it with 2 hands. An evil creature that takes this radiant damage must succeed on a DC 17 Constitution saving throw or be blinded until the end of its next turn. Sword of Zerial is it's a sentient, lawful good item with an intelligence of 10, wisdom of 20, charisma of 18. I love that this sword has a charisma of 18, but gives you a charisma of 20. Good wingman, this sword.
I love that the sword's like, we're both very good, but you're in charge.
But you're in charge. Yes, exactly. And then Truth Seer. While holding the sword, you gain advantage on all wisdom insight checks. So talk about ribbon abilities, right? The sword is incredibly, not only is it incredibly busted just for like its damage capabilities, but it also gives you all this cool stuff. True Sight. I love it. True Sight's one of those abilities that's like, it's probably not featuring into optimizing your build. It is incredible. You always want that if you can get it. It's just so good.
Now I'm curious, are you planning to take advantage of the personality suggestions that come with the Sword of Zerial in any way?
Yes. So of these personality suggestions, right? Personality trait, I treat all beings, even enemies, with respect. Ideal, charity, face responsibility. Bond, I must keep a written record of my beliefs, or I have cherished memories of Idle Glen. With all of these, what's sort of interesting about these suggested flaws and abilities is that there's an element of the sword which it affects an evil creature really intensely, right? Because it sort of forces an alignment change. If a good creature wields it, it's sort of an interesting element of you being like, I am charitable to all people I meet, or I'm kind of respectful to all people I meet. And it's, so there would sort of be this weird thing where people were like, I guess Steve is nicer than he used to be. There's this weird thing of like, if you were already a good person, the effect the sword has on you is like just a little bit more paladin-y than you used to be, right? But I love that.
So that charisma bonus is also, of course, people tracking the classes at home. You are both a paladin and a sorcerer, so not a bad thing to have.
Not a bad thing to have. Gives you +5 on all of your spell DCs and spell attack bonuses. And also, right, there's a bunch of paladin abilities associated with charisma, right? There's like turning attempts and other things like that. There's like it's good. It's quite good. So that item is busted to bits. It's incredible. If we do this math out loud, what each hit? So a hit with this sword starts off doing 4d10 radiant. If I drop a smite into it, Amy, if you want to dungeon master for a second here, do you think I'm fighting a fiend or an undead at this point, or am I fighting a regular enemy?
Do we want to do the math twice or once?
We could do it twice. We could go through it both ways. Let's do that. Let's just say the smites coming in are regular enemy. are 5d8 radiant. There is a one-time 1d8 coming from Gloomstalker. Um,
Mhm.
we can also assume that there is a one-time, if I have an ally within 5 feet. My sneak attack. Oh, sorry. No, I don't get sneak attack. I have absolutely made this character. This is not a finesse weapon, so I do not add my sneak attack, which is fine. It's a little bit unoptimal, but it ends up. The assassinate is worth it, even if you're not using the sneak attack. Um, we look at fighting style.
We haven't even talked
Don't
about your
think that.
Tides of Chaos giving you advantage on this if you desperately need it. Hmm?
Well, so there's a lot of abilities like those. Those are all meant to come in later, right? Like all
Okay.
those abilities are meant to come in because in this first round, I should, if I've gotten my surprise round, had advantage on everything already, right?
Excellent.
Theoretically, from the assassinate feature. Um, so let's see here. I think we have enough information. I might be missing some extra mustard I can put on this, but essentially, right? Um, we're gonna look at um, uh, these 6 attacks going off. Um, uh, each of those attacks are crits, so it becomes 8d10 and then 10d8 radiant on each hit. So if we look at that, and then that extra from Gloomstalker becomes 2d8. So the average there is going to be what is 8 times 5.5 is, you
44.
know what? Was that?
44?
Sorry, was that Amy?
40,
44?
44. It sounds like 4d4, but like 4 tens plus 4 on that.
Yes, 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 yes. Uh, Let me see here. I'm actually gonna do. I know this is so funny to be on the stream doing math, but hold on 1 second. We're gonna go 5, 8. Yeah, 44, and then uh, so that's and then 4.5 times 10
So this is assuming
plus.
optimal conditions. The person is surprised. You are getting this first blow, but they are not a fiend or undead, so it's not activating some of your extra stuff. And you are throwing smites on every possible thing. And so
Throw
the automatic crit is for every attack in this round.
every attack in this round. Um, I believe. Let me double check. This will be a very sad day if it's not.
Oh
But
no!
assassinate. Uh, yeah. Any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. So yeah, all 6 of these attacks are going to be critical. Um, uh, so we end up with that average damage being so that's 93. Okay. If I hit on all 6 attacks, which of course, might not be, but at this point, I probably will have Sacred Weapon active, so it'll be a plus 15 to hit on these attacks.
Hmm.
Um, if I hit with every one of those attacks and roll average damage, it's 567 points of damage in that round, in that first round.
Which I believe enough to actually kill yourself stone dead. If you were
I could kill 3 of me easy. No question. No question. If I ever find 3 of me, it is a real quick draw scenario. It's a bad look. However, if we all have mirror image, that's going to be a really silly fight, right? Um, that's going to be really silly. But yeah, so that's the central engine of the character. It's so silly, and again, wildly suboptimal for a lot of reasons.
so
Adding
what's this character
those
bad at?
3. Well, what it really comes down to, right, is he's sunk. What is he? He sunk 7 levels into sorcerer, which means that he can only cast 4th level sorcerer spells, even though paladin, even though he has the spell slots of an 11th level primary caster, he can only get up to 4th level spells. So he's running around with archmages that can cast wish and stuff, only really rocking 4th level spells. But he has the hit points of those 7 levels of sorcerer. So this is a guy who's going to be up in the mix. This is why this is not a fair fight dude, right? Like, he does not have the hit points nor the resilience to really go toe to toe. And his armor class, because he's again optimizing for damage, so he doesn't have a shield up. There's nothing else like that. The other build I made that was similar to this, Mossbrow, could get his armor when he casts shield up to 31, right? Like, this guy's got a bad. That's why we're relying on mirror image and blink, frankly, right? It's like, don't get hit in the first place. But I think the main things too are, as an adventurer, I would probably not play Pentival over a long campaign. In an earlier build, I got rid of those 5 levels of Ranger, and instead of being a 3rd level paladin, was a 6th level paladin, which immediately you get a +5 to all your saving throws, which is one of the, if you're actually playing a character in a weekly campaign, having a +5 to all your saving throws, so it's unbelievable. And you give it to your allies in 10 feet. It's extraordinary. That aura of protection is one of the best abilities in the game. It's an unbelievable ability. But it did not, and I traded all of that away, which is, I'm telling, to the kids at home, foolishly traded it all away for 1 extra attack in the first round of combat, which, silly, not optimal.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. We started going through the items, and then I sort of got us out of there. So real quick, Butcher's Bib is one I have never used before. That's going to give you some optional rerolls for weapon damage. Although you'll have to
Yes,
use the second one. And does your Sword of Zariel do slashing damage?
it does.
Oh, so a critical hit on a 19 or 20, huh?
Yes, that's correct. It's a
Sounds
critical hit on a
extremely
19 or
handy.
20.
Also, the fact
These,
that your very, very holy rabbit is running around with a permanently bloody Butcher's Bib.
you know, what it's an interesting thing. One might say, hey, the Sword of Zariel and the Butcher's Bib feel a little bit opposed, sort of thematically. What I would counter to that with is, I like my butcher. That's a friendly neighborhood job to have. And if you need to go, especially if you want to get ethically sourced meat, you should have a relationship with your local butcher. If you get it, if you have no idea where that comes from. So in a sense, the way I see it is that Pentival is maybe a little bit more blunt about the things that adventurers tend to do. Like, if we're being honest, if we're truly and really being honest, how many paladins are running around out here with truly figuratively blood-soaked hands? Quite a bit, I'd say. Quite a bit. I don't know if you know the record for even the sort of sweetest bean D&D characters. Pretty murderous. Pretty murderous out here.
Little body count there.
Little body count there. So, I would say that that probably people seeing Pentival with this sort of, in my head, the Butcher's Bib for him is a little bit less fiendish than pictured here, and more just probably like a very blood-soaked tunic from a lot of combat. I think that he is, would invite that comparison. So you see this gleaming, glowing sword, and then a very blood-soaked garment, and him being like, "Hello, nice to meet you." And it's like, that's up to you to figure out what this guy's vibe is. It's an unusual vibe for sure.
I love it also because it is very much, if you see Pentival, it is too late. So it is good that he carries some visual warning,
Yes, for sure.
Finally, we have the gauntlets of ogre power on there, which I think is just making you real strong.
A real beefy boy. Yeah, absolutely. Those gauntlets of ogre power are incredible. I mean, And the real thing about those gauntlets of ogre power is that they're an uncommon item. I mean, that's what's so sort of staggering about them, right? Is that they are like um not the rarest to find. But yeah, that's getting that strength up there to 19, um, which, you know, there's a world where we sort of optimize Pentival's own ability scores to get them that high. But the issue is that that dexterity and that wisdom are going towards initiative, which, as we've discussed,
Mhm.
it's so critical that Pentival go first in combat, right? So that's explains the choice of the gauntlets of ogre power. But yes,
So
a yes.
oh, no, I was just curious. I know obviously Pentival is built for this one shot. These things work together in a very specific way. But if you had to try to imagine the journey he took that got him from level one out of the village to 20 levels across 5 classes, best there is at what he does, isn't very nice, wielding the Sword of Zariel, what was that journey?
I
Which
think
classes
that
came first?
I think that you can group a lot of this into I think you can group a lot of this into sort of three staggered areas, right? And I think the staggered areas are that sorcerer and ranger rogue. Sorcerer is one part of the tripod unto itself. The next is ranger rogue and fighter, all kind of coming together. And then the third on its own is sort of paladin, right? The way I think about this, right, is that according to D&D Beyond, so the first class that Pentival took is actually sorcerer. That's his base class. That's where his proficient saving throws come from. Like he's proficient in constitution and charisma. Um, oh, and by the way, right, he had his feats are alert and warcaster. So that
Hmm.
warcaster is for him to be able to hold on to that haste, to not lose that haste, right? Um, uh, Looking at the initial thing that Pentival is first as a child is he's a wild magic sorcerer, like not brawny, not terribly powerful, right? Um, and I think in like all things being equal, that um Pentival starts in that world of wild magic, but doesn't get to seventh level there to begin with, right? I
Hmm.
think Pentival is touched by chaos at an early age. I think that wild magic is sort of there at the beginning, and that he's immediately because if you look at the amount of things within Harengon that reference luck, and then you
Hmm.
look at the features from Wild Magic Sorcerer that aren't referred to as being lucky, but are referred to as, tides of chaos, right? Or this idea of like what level they get tides of, starting at first level, you get tides of chaos. So immediately, this is a kid who's touched by chaos. And I think that the attitude, at least amongst his community, which is a community of rogues and thieves and scoundrels, is that chaos is what uptight people refer to luck as, right? Like that luck is chaos. That when you are down and out, when you are a scrappy small thing, right? Chaos is always to your advantage. If you're this like nomadic, caravan traveling group of rabbit folk thieves, chaos is always to your advantage because
Hmm.
by the averages,
The
by the
odds are
status
against you.
quo, the odds are against you. So you're always hoping for a wild swing. So I see Pentival as being born. Maybe he was born. Maybe his parents tried to bless him with some weird alchemical thing. Maybe they were hiding out near a like elemental chaos rift. Maybe there was some blessing from the plane of limbo itself. But everyone was like, "We want this." I almost think about it like your child, the child that you have born to you will be doomed, or like there is some terrible fate that will befall your child, and they ask for some favor or spell about being like, well, can we get multiple destinies? Can we get more than one so that he's doomed and also blessed? And it's like, well, how would that work? He'd almost have to have two souls. And they're like, great, two souls sounds good, we'll buy it. And that there's some bizarre thing of like from the outset, it's like first level of sorcerer, the kid is tapped into some weird magic. And then from there, I think he keeps that first level of sorcerer and starts accumulating levels of rogue and ranger, right? It's rogue and it's ranger to survive, like cunning action at second level of rogue. Him and his family traveling in wilderness areas, being sneaky and stealthy. So these paladin levels that come later, they come at high levels. At the beginning, everything in his DNA is stay sharp, stay vigilant, don't fight fair, and try to keep one step ahead of the game, right? Over that time, he but what always happens as you gain levels is you get tougher, you get more resilient. You know, if he's a he gets assassin at third level of rogue, he gets Gloom Stalker at third level of Ranger. Now he's a seventh level character. And he can survive a little bit more. He can survive with like a town guard. You can survive like a fair fight. And that's when I think like the last two levels of Ranger come in with extra attack. And then I think two levels of Fighter come in. And then I think he finds the Sword of Zerial and his charisma goes to 20. And suddenly magic is a good idea to invest in. And then I think he starts alternating between levels of paladin and levels of sorcerer. Once his charisma goes up, all of a sudden it's like, right, I should have been doing spellcasting this whole time. This is actually quite helpful, right? You get mirror image at he takes two more levels of sorcerer and gets mirror image, and he's like, this is brilliant. I shouldn't have been even trying to dodge this whole time. Just make copies of yourself. And
I spent so much time jumping. This is way easier.
Way easier. At heart, he is a rogue and a ranger and a scoundrel, right? He started with that sorcerer thing because that's his origin. He's always had that tap into wild magic. And I think that explains why there are so many contradictions in him. Why is someone wielding the sword of Zerial and wearing a butcher's bib? And, you know, with that little weird glint of like iridescent wild magic in his eye, he'd be like, well, yeah, I have celestial magic. That's just part of the story, right? It's that idea of like, oh, there's a lot more going on here than meets the
And that is
eye. And that's
how you take a bunch of numbers on a sheet. This is my favorite thing about I have a million favorite things about D&D, but currently my favorite thing about D&D is that every character has so much story baked in, and the possibilities of what they can do and be and mean in context, in action, as they express themselves through the fights or negotiations or whatever else might be coming your way, are what make them legends. And I cannot wait for people to meet Five in action in the game this Sunday. Which, by the way, I am informed that during the time we have been streaming, because you can already go and donate to Wave All the Rape Crisis Center for streaming for survivors, I believe y'all have already raised over $1,000, and the game isn't until Sunday.
Yeah! Way to go, everyone in the chat! Woo!
Incredible. That game is at 2 o'clock Pacific on Sunday. You definitely don't want to miss it. And Brennan, thank you so much for being here. We have a couple more minutes, so we're gonna do take a few questions from chat, I think. Although please, if there's anything that I left off of the sheet that you're like, oh wait, no, we must talk about it, let me know.
No, we hit it all. There's so many bizarre little odds and ends in here. It's we hit the major stuff for sure.
And the link to that is running through chat right now, or it's in the description you are reading, depending on where you're watching this video, so you can poke around and see all of the magic that makes Five so incredibly fun.